Hey, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are around the world, and welcome to Living the New Thought Way. And my name is Robert, and I'm your host for this podcast. It's actually the first podcast on Living the New Thought Way. And I want to welcome you. I'm excited that you're here. And why would you want to know about what is Living the New Thought Way? So we're going to get into that as we go on. But Living the New Thought Way, it goes by other names, and it's also called the New Thought Ageless Wisdom Teachings. That's part of it. And we're even going, broadening out, expanding in other areas as well. But let me tell you a little bit about, again, what is Living the New Thought Way? It's a way of bringing the mind and the heart together in alignment. The mind and the heart and the mind together, and feeling what there's a spiritual teacher that Eckhart Tolle is his name. You may know him, and he calls that if you go within and feel deep into your heart, he calls that feeling the presence. So we're going to be talking about feeling the presence, and you may feel the presence as we go through this podcast. And I wanted to share a little bit about myself. So I was an assistant or a staff minister under the topic of the science of mind teachings. At that time, it was called religious science, and then it was renamed, and it's now called the Centers for Spiritual Living. And there are other independent branches that teach the same thing. And so I'm now affiliated with the Agape International Spiritual Center in Los Angeles. So just so you have a little background of who I am. And what is it about these teachings that one can use or utilize in their life to have a better, more satisfying, loving, abundant life? Well, let me ask you a couple of questions first. For those of you that are working, how is your career? Is it satisfying? Does it feed you energy? Is it feeding you? Is it uplifting? Are you just getting by? Are you in a dead end job? What about your relationships? Are they satisfying? Do you have a relationship? Do you want a relationship? Do you prefer being one with yourself and alone? Some people like that. And for those of you that want relationships, I think I just read there's 18 billion people in the world. So I know there's someone for you out there. I know it. What about your vitality? Do you want more vitality in life? Do you want more get up and go? What about your abundance? Are you feeling abundant, or are you living paycheck to paycheck and just getting by? Well, we can change that too, because I know that I've done it in and as my life as well. So what I'm going to do in this podcast is I'm going to, as time goes on in these podcasts, I may read, and this is, by the way, is a spiritual podcast. And I may read something from a spiritual book from a teacher that's no longer with us, or a current spiritual teacher. I might read a sentence or part of a paragraph. And what I want to do is, for the earlier teachers that have written books, I will add my insights to that and bring it to the 21st century. And you can do that as well for yourself. Don't count on me being the spiritual authority. I'm here to assist and support you in your growth and my own growth as well. So join me in this adventure that we call life itself. Now, I wanted to share a little bit about when I was working as the chief X-ray technologist, or the imaging technologist, at a medical center in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I had to attend a management meeting, and I went to the meeting, and there were about 10 of us there, and we all introduced ourselves, and there was one woman sitting there, and her name was Rochelle Myers. And there was just something about her. She seemed very present and grounded and centered. And I was attracted to that because I wanted to learn that in my life or for my life. And so I got to know Rochelle, and as I saw her at the medical center, I would always talk with her. And she just happened to mention casually that she had a school also. And I said, what's the name of the school? And she says, the Myers Institute for Creative Studies, which is, her name, Rochelle Myers. And I go, what do you do there? And she says, well, part of it is I have an art school. I have a master's degree in art, and I have an art school there. And she goes, there's another aspect of it where I work with individual clients. I go, oh, interesting, individual clients. And I said, what do you do with these individual clients? And she said, I help them get clear. And I said, what's the program called? She said, Getting Clear. And I was thinking back regarding like Scientology. I go, does this have anything to do with Scientology? And she said, no, not a thing. And I go, why would someone want to come to you? And she said, to get clear about something, to get clear about various aspects of their life. And I thought about that, and I thought I'd like to get clear about my career and what I'm doing in life, and am I on the right path or the right track? And so I just made an appointment to see her, and I went over there to her office, and it's a beautiful Victorian that her office was in, and I went in and I sat down, and we began our session. And she said, I noticed when she asked a question, she always paused. And so what she said on the first session with me, she said, Robert, what would you like to get clear about today? And she just paused. There was that long pause. And I wasn't really sure now what I wanted to get clear about, because during that pause, I was thinking, I had a lot of thoughts about what did I want to get clear about this day at this time with this appointment. And I said, I'd like to get clear about my career path. Like, am I on the right track? And she goes, well, how is your position there at the medical center? And I said, as chief technologist, that's like assistant manager. And I said, it's okay. I'm at the epitome of my career, and it pays well. And she says, it's satisfying. I said, no, it's not really that satisfying. And I don't like working with unions and all of everything that comes with management. And she goes, okay. She goes, let me pose a question to you. And I go, okay, pose your question. And I'm sharing this because I think you might be able to use it in some aspect of your life as well. And so she asked me this question. Is your, here's the question. Is your work easy, effortless, and enjoyable? I thought about it. I go, well, not really. It's not easy. It's not effortless, and it's definitely not enjoyable. And she goes, what is easy, effortless, and enjoyable for you, Robert? And I said, jokingly, I said, how about sitting on the couch, eating a bag of potato chips and watching TV? That's easy. That's effortless. And that's enjoyable. And she turned and she says, that's not what I'm talking about. I go, okay. And I said, tell me more. And she said, see that collage up there on the staircase where it reaches the landing and then the staircase goes up? I go, yeah. And she said, you see that the collage there? It's about 5 feet by 4 feet wide and under glass. And I go, yeah, I see it. It's beautiful. And she goes, I created that. I made that. I created that. And she goes, and I just finished that recently. And she says, I was up till 4 in the morning uh, completing that. And I said, okay. And then she paused and she said, and it was easy, effortless, and enjoyable. And then I thought, how can it be easy, effortless, and enjoyable if you're up till 4 in the morning? I don't understand. And she said, I was in the flow with this piece that I was making. I was just in the flow and I lost track of time. And who knew it was 4 a.m.? And then she added something on and she says, and just because something's easy, effortless, and enjoyable, like creating that collage, it did take some work on my part, some hard work actually. So just because something's easy, effortless, and enjoyable doesn't mean that it doesn't include some work or hard work too. Mm-hmm. She goes, so let me ask you a question. What's easy, effortless, and enjoyable in your life? And I thought about it and contemplated that. I didn't have an answer right off, but I said, I have to think about that. She says, okay. And we talked about my position there at the hospital, and she goes, and after the discussion about it, she said, sounds like you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole. It's not a fit for you. And she goes, a hint that you're pursuing the right career is that it's easy, effortless, and enjoyable. She goes, that's the hint for you. And just on the aside here, it doesn't have to be about your career. It could be about career, relationships, your creative aspects of yourself. Just kind of keep that in mind. Easy, effortless, and enjoyable. And for short, she called it EEE. And she also said, a hint, she goes, Robert, is that it's easy, effortless, and enjoyable. You're doing your meant to be. Then she paused again, and I had to think about what's a meant to be? What's a meant to be? And she said, the meant to be is what you're meant to be here to do in and as your life. And she goes, you can have more than one. And you're meant to be, or what's easy, effortless, enjoyable, doesn't necessarily have to be your career, what you're doing to make money. It could be something parallel. It could be some creative outlet. It could be something else. So don't think you're locked into this. And so that was a really interesting session about this idea of easy, effortless, and enjoyable, and the idea of a meant to be. My question to you is, what is easy, effortless, enjoyable for you, and what is your meant to be? Well, that's not something that comes, right away. It's something that you have to contemplate and be with. So that was a good first session. And again, I'm bringing this up because I want you to begin to think about that, to ponder that. What's easy, effortless, and enjoyable as your life and in your life? And is it you're meant to be? And I'm including in relationships, in vitality, in creative outlets, in abundance, in all those areas of your life. She called it the life components. So just be with that. Let that percolate within you. And at the end of our session, I happened to notice there was a gold medal on the table there. And I said to her, what is that medal for? And she goes, this was during the Kennedy administration, but I was given that medal. It's a presidential medal for the work I did in working with disabled people. She goes, I was the director of the San Francisco Center for the Handicapped, and now they would say probably disabled. And she goes, I was invited to Washington to the White House to receive that medal, that presidential medal. And I said, that must have been exciting. Get on a plane, go to Washington, and go to the White House and be acknowledged and receive that medal. That must have been something. And she goes, Robert, I didn't go. And I thought, you didn't go? Why wouldn't you go to receive a medal, a presidential medal? And she said, because it wasn't easy, effortless, and enjoyable for me. And I go, what wasn't about it? And she goes, I have to get on a plane, pack my bags, fly to DC. I think it's a 5-hour flight, find a hotel, and the whole thing smelled like a hassle. So she goes, I didn't go. I told them to send it. And they did. And I learned something right there and then, that this wonderful person, Rochelle Myers, seems like she didn't have a very big ego. She was kind of egoless. And I found out later that she was also a professor at Stanford University, and she taught a course there called, co-taught a course called Creativity in Business for the MBA students. And she wrote a book, co-wrote a book with her co-professor, and that book's called Creativity in Business, and it's on Amazon. You can still get it. It was written in, I think, the 70s, so it's a little bit outdated, but the material in this book you can use for any aspect of your life. So I wanted to just kind of bring you into this with me, and I wanted to give you an activity for before the next podcast. And what that activity is think about, be with what's easy, effortless, and enjoyable in your life, and think about and contemplate. I'd rather you more contemplate than think about it. What is your meant to be? Why are you here? What are you meant to do? And I don't care if you're getting out of school, if you're working now, you're retired, you still have some creative expression that wants to be expressed because the universe is always expressing and expanding. And that includes you and me. And then on the next podcast, what I'm going to do is there are 10 clearing questions in the book, Creativity in Business. And I'm going to read those questions to you and have you write them down. And I'm going to give you time to answer those questions for yourself and contemplate them. And we'll see what unfolds from there. This is very valuable information and teaching because I've used it in my life, and I continue to use the 10 questions and even do more that I'm going to teach you and over time. So thank you for being here on my podcast. I'm excited that you're here for the first time. And if you like the if you like the podcast, click on the like button, and you can subscribe if you like. It helps with the algorithm. So for now, I want to say to each and every one of you, have a wonderful evening, a wonderful morning, a wonderful afternoon, wherever you are, and peace and blessings to you specifically. Peace and blessings. Bye bye for now.